Monday, and that so happens to be the day that I like to talk about monsters. I am Geoff Arbuckle, and this is Monster Mondays, presented to you by Film Seizure. And for this week, it's a pretty popular movie. This is An American Werewolf in London from 1981, and it's directed by John Landis. Now, this is billed as a horror comedy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in just a moment. But of course, John Landis is pretty well known as a comedy director in general. So he had spent a good number of years leading up to An American Werewolf in London, and with the three films in particular that came out just before this, you had Kentucky Fried Movie, which became kind of a cult classic, but it was a very adult humor. Then he had the hugely successful Animal House. Animal House ended up really changing what comedies would be like, particularly for a particular age group, and that would be 18 to 25 or so. And it would change the way comedy movies would be made for decades after it. Almost every boner comedy from the 80s lends directly to Animal House. And then, after doing Animal House, he had another huge hit with the Blues Brothers. And the Blues Brothers has become kind of a contemporary action comedy classic that is still looked at today as far as ways that you can do more with a comedy. There's a lot of different things in there. There's musical, there's the action element, there are deadpan humor while also some more broad jokes. He was really riding a really big hot streak, and he decided to do a movie that would be both very lighthearted at times and extremely scary at other times. And I think that's what makes this movie kind of interesting in general. And I think there were some critics, and there may be some people in more contemporary times or in more present day times that would say it doesn't really work with this balance in the tone. I'm a guy who's a big proponent of having a consistent tone. However, this movie, I think, balances relatively well. And there are other issues with this movie, but I certainly understand what John Landis was going for, and I think that it should be noted and be appreciated that he really, for the most part, succeeds in making a very light-hearted horror movie, a horror movie that both somehow oddly manages to take itself extremely seriously while also being not very serious about itself at all at the same time. It's a very weird balance that this movie strikes. But there are three primary lead characters in this movie. There's David Naughton, who plays David Kessler. He is our American Werewolf in London. There's Griffin Dunn, who plays Jack Goodman, who's David's friend who gets murdered early in the movie. And then there's Nurse Alex Price, who's played by Jenny Agutter. And she had been, about 5 years before this, the lead opposite of Michael York in Logan's Run. And so she kind of is the most, maybe the most established actress at the time. I mean, she was probably at the peak of her popularity around this era, and she'd been acting since she was a little girl too. But so this movie is actually relatively simplistic in how it plays out. It begins with David and Jack, who are backpacking through the moors in Yorkshire. This was where David wanted to go. Jack is unimpressed with this place. Jack is more excited about heading to Italy after they're done in England. They're basically college students who are just bumming around Europe for an entire summer, basically, or at least I think they said they had 3 months to see the world, essentially. They stop off at a place, this little local tavern called the Slaughtered Lamb, but they're not very respectful to these people, and I don't know if they necessarily intended not to be very respectful to them or not. They see that the locals don't really care much for them being outsiders. They also see like there's a strange pentagram on the wall, and when they ask about it, the already kind of sour mood that the locals have about them gets even worse, because now they basically get run out of the place. And the barkeep, she's not so sure that she likes that idea. She tries to make a plea to the other people after the guys leave that you can't, it's a full moon out. You can't send them out there. It's essentially going to be murder. But at the same time, people in the bar are kind of okay with this. They seem to be almost kind of doing one of those things where it's, they hear a wolf howl and there's, we don't hear anything, and they're perfectly fine with these two American kids basically going off to their death. And sure enough, as they are walking around, they think about going back to the Slaughtered Lamb, but at the same time it starts raining really hard. They kind of lose their place, and sure enough, they get attacked by some sort of a beast. And David basically sees Jack get mauled to death, and then the beast comes after David and scratches him on his face and his chest. And before it can go in for the kill, the locals shoot the beast, and when Jack looks over, it is an old man naked lying next to him. Then he wakes up 3 weeks later in a hospital in London, where he's told that he's been in a coma, and he's also told that he was attacked by an escaped madman. And he keeps saying, it wasn't a madman. The scratches on my face can't be from a madman. It was from a wolf. And he's not sure if Jack has been killed or not. He does get told that Jack didn't survive the attack, but he's out of sorts. He doesn't really understand what people are telling him, and he's not really sure what he's experienced. But what does start to happen is he starts having these really particularly scary dreams, where he is running through the woods. He has one dream in which he kind of turns into like this vampire-like creature and kills his nurse, Alex. He has another dream in which he's at home doing his homework, and these zombie Nazi monster things attack and kill his entire family. He has another dream where he chases down a deer and rips its leg off and starts eating it raw. It's a lot of really strange but very realistic dreams to him. In time, he is released from the hospital. Even though he's still having these bad dreams, really physically there's nothing wrong with him. He has built a rapport with Nurse Alex, and so she takes him in, partly because she's attracted to him, partly because she feels sorry for him. They immediately have sex when they get back to her place, and they start building on a relationship. However, there's a big problem here. Before he left the hospital, he got visited by Jack, who has come back from the dead. He's all messed up. He's got skin hanging off of him. His throat's been ripped out. And he tells him, hey, you're a werewolf, and I'm able to come to you because I am left in limbo, because the werewolf curse also means that the people you kill are destined to remain walking around and basically being the living dead until the curse is broken. So he says, David, you've got to, kill yourself, basically. Do whatever you can, because you don't, one, I want you to free me, but two, you don't want to make more people like me. But he thinks he's kind of gone crazy. He doesn't necessarily... He also kind of takes it in stride, too. And so he's kind of not taking it seriously, but he also is kind of taking it seriously. He can't unsee what he's seen. He can't unhear what he's heard. And after he and Alex had sex, well, Jack comes back again and says, man, tomorrow's the full moon. You've got to do something now. But he doesn't heed the warning. When Alex goes to work the next day, he's left alone at night, and he has a painful transformation into a werewolf, and he goes out and murders 6 people around London in different parts of town, but all of the same, all of the same condition that the body's left in, pretty much half eaten. So when he realizes that there have been murders, even though the only thing that he doesn't remember anything, the only thing that is off is that he woke up at the zoo in the wolf's cage naked. He doesn't know how he got there. He doesn't know anything about that, but he begins to think that what Jack has been telling him is true. So once he realizes this, now meanwhile his doctor has been trying to investigate it. He's gone to the town in the moors and discovered that, yeah, there is something weird about this town, and he even gets some warning from one of the locals who is afraid to talk because of the others, but eventually gives in and says that, David's in real trouble. He starts looking into whether or not it's mass hypnosis that's going on in this town, that, there's there are werewolves because they believe there are werewolves. But then again, he starts seeing the reports from the paper of the dead bodies, and he realizes, yeah, there is something definitely wrong going on here. And he tries to get Alex to bring David to the hospital. But once he realizes there have been deaths, he decides he needs to either himself go to the police, and he tries to get himself arrested to no avail. He then decides to call home and leave a message with his little sister, and then he plans on slitting his wrist, but he can't go through with it. He sees Jack and goes to meet him inside of a porno house in Piccadilly Circus. And boy, do I have a lot to say about Piccadilly Circus in this movie, but to all, good things come to those who wait. But he, while at the porno house, gets introduced to his other victims who, like Jack, are now part of the living dead. And so the other people who aren't Jack, most of them are really pissed off at David for killing them, but they all try to help him figure out ways that he kills himself. Well, he's at the porno house too long. Nightfall comes, the full moon rises, he transforms into a werewolf. He busts out of the theater after killing a few people. There's a lead inspector during this whole time who's trying to figure out basically what happened to David and Jack in the moors. The moment he busts out of that theater, he decapitates that guy. And it causes havoc. So the police come, and this time they bring shotguns. And when Alex tries to talk David down, she tells him that she loves him, she wants to help him, all of that. You think that he is going to go to her peacefully. He lunges for her. The cops shoot him. She sees David's naked body on the ground, and smash cut to the credits. The movie's over, and we get Blue Moon playing for our final credits. I know some people take umbrage with the conclusion because it happens so quickly, but I think it lays into a little bit of, they do play up some of the Wolfman stuff from the 40s. A lot of those movies from the 40s ended that quickly. I think it was purposely done by John Landis. I think John Landis tried to make his own version of Lon Chaney Jr.'s The Wolfman. So I'm okay with that. I'm actually it kind of made me chuckle a little bit that it ended so quickly like that. So let's get to my 3 things that I like about this movie. First and foremost, the one thing I will always remember about this movie from seeing it as a little kid. And by the way, seeing this movie as a little kid with the whole scene in the nudie theater, I don't know how I got away with that, but whatever. I was a very lucky kid, I guess. But the nightmares that David has in this, as he is when he wakes up at the hospital and then he starts having normal sleep and he has these nightmares, they have stuck with me all of my life for the last 40 years. They are scary, but when you're a little kid and you have that jump scare when he's like a vampire, and he kind of looks like the vampire from Salem's Lot, but that's always jarring because there's also a lot of nightmares within nightmares. So, he thinks he wakes up, but then something happens and then he wakes up again. This was kind of really before that trope became overplayed, but that always stuck with me. The scene that definitely always stuck with me was when his family gets murdered, because they're sitting there, the kids are watching the Muppet Show, everything seems normal. They get a knock on the door, they answer the door, and it's these monsters, Nazi zombie things with machine guns blowing everybody away. When you're a little kid, that really affects you. Because it's like, wow, I could die while I'm watching the Muppet Show. But it's stuff like that that has always stuck with me, because those are really scary moments in this movie that have no larger connection to anything else. It's just a mental thing, and it just seems like almost throwaway scenes, just some ideas that John Landis had and he figured out a way to put them in there. But it's stuck with me for decades. Even when I watch the movie now as an adult who's seen far scarier things, it still affects me because I have that memory of being affected by it. Secondly, Rick Baker's makeup and effects in this are unbelievable. He won the very first Oscar for makeup for this movie. The transformation scene is some of the best creature feature effects that you'll ever see. Because how do you take a man and transform him into a wolf that is on all fours? It is painful. Your bones have to start going in different directions. You start, your fingers have to elongate, and and become paws, and and it's painful to look at. It's painful for the characters, and it is just some of the best creature feature effects you'll ever see. And this was during a time in which there was another really good transformation scene in The Howling, another werewolf movie. So it's one of those things that I think that this really pushed makeup effects and special effects for like creatures and stuff into the stratosphere, because of how realistic this is, how much you feel the transformation yourself too. It just makes it all that much more real. And then finally, the last scene of this movie is all out chaos. They're in Piccadilly Circus. Piccadilly Circus has a lot of people in it. It has a lot of cars driving around in it. They're in a porno house. He transforms into a werewolf. And the first thing that happens is that you have Bobby's trying to keep the shutters closed on the theater until the backup can arrive. And the backup arrives, and now you've also got all these people you got to hold back and everything, and you got all this traffic going on. The werewolf busts out. He decapitates the lead investigator. He runs out into the street, which causes cars to wreck. Cars wrecking into buses that wreck into other cars that throws people out, throws a person out of the window of the bus for another car to run over that person. A car slides into these people that throws them through the windows of a store at Piccadilly Circus. You've got people crashing into things like a pileup, like a Blues Brothers pileup, but you're also having people slam through the windshield of the car. I mean, the number of people who died in this sequence that you don't actually get to see, but you just have these flashes of people flying through windows and windshields and getting run over by cars and dying from being thrown from their car, being thrown through store windows. It is madness. And the whole time I'm just sitting there watching this, just mouth agape, like, what the hell is going on? How many people are dying in this scene? And it is magical, while at the same time really kind of like, yeah, this is the guy who made Blues Brothers just the year before. Yeah, I totally get it. I totally understand. But it is utter madcap madness. And it's all because a werewolf ran out into the street. And it's amazing. And I love that. And it's something I want to watch again right now. But for right now, I do have to close out this episode of Monster Mondays. Don't forget to check out new episodes of Film Seizure every Wednesday and a new installment of Monster Mondays each and every Monday. You can find those at filmseizure.com. And our episodes of both Film Seizure and Monster Mondays can also be found in places like SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Audible, most of the big places where you typically find your podcast. But you can also hop on over to Facebook and Twitter. Follow us there. Simply search for Film Seizure. We'll come up. And while you're at it, you can also check out my website, bmovieenema.com. You get new text articles each and every Friday morning. I also have a YouTube channel. Just go over to YouTube, search for B Movie Enema, subscribe. Check out season 1 of B Movie Enema, the series. 13 movies that I hosted. Not like the normal stuff that you always see every other host do. I mean, these are some real prime cuts that I chose. I've got season 2 coming in September, so be sure to check that out. You can also follow B Movie Enema at Twitter and Facebook. Just search for B Movie Enema. So until next week, stay spooky and watch out, because full moon's coming. And I don't want you to get attacked by anything or see a wolf run out into the road and you get thrown through your windshield or anything like that. So just be careful and beware the moon.